Aftercare After Dark is intended for mature audiences. If you're under the age of 18, we would ask you to leave this broadcast immediately and patiently await your formal invite to the grown folks table. We sometimes discuss topics that can be triggering for some. Please refer to the show's notes for episode-specific trigger warnings and resources. Thank you for listening.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Aftercare After Dark. My name is Miss G.
And I'm Yolanda. We're two sisters helping each other navigate these kink streets. Aftercare is time spent communicating and taking care of your partner after sex and or play. But who does this vital work when you're single? We are here for each other and those of you who are also exploring.
Today's episode is about defining terms.
Aftercare is time spent communicating and taking care of your partner after play and or sex.
BDSM is an acronym that stands for bondage, domination, submission, sadism, and masochism, or slave and master.
If you say so. Anyone doing this in a public forum, avoid the slave and master terminology, because I'm entirely too black for that. It is problematic.
That is the technical term,
I know. And I wish I had, all my friends are vanilla, except for you. But I do wish I had other African-American women to talk to about this and see what their takes on it are. One of my favorite quotes out of a TV show, history lives in us whether we learn it or not, right? Mm-hmm. And too many people are rolling around here not knowing enough history, especially as Americans, to be doing that. Just indiscriminately use slave and master as a thing, or try it with someone who does know their history and is very, very sensitive about it. And I'm allowed to be sensitive about it because I'm black. People always ask me, what do you mix with? Black mixed with black, with some black on the side. My grandmother was a quarter black.
So bondage and discipline, domination, submission, sadism and masochism, and slave and master. And please be advised that all of this is consensual. So please practice enthusiastic consent when engaging in activities that fall under BDSM. What often becomes a problem in the world of BDSM is that a lot of people come into this world thinking that it's a fantasy. It's a sex fantasy. And while that is true, you have to be very conscientious of how you're playing and how you're engaging these activities, because these are real people. There are real physical and mental and emotional risks involved in these play. And we're just here to educate our audience and welcome any input and insight as well too.
Let's move on to kink, because I think it's easier. That is just anything that falls outside of mainstream vanilla sex. So what we think of as a boilerplate for what happens during sex and then moving outside of that. A kink can be something that rolls into the BDSM play. It could also be a body part. It could be a specific type of person. It can be a certain mannerism in which a person plays or has sex. Kinks run the gambit. It can be a small thing and it can be a huge thing, like penises. But I don't know why what's wrong with me. They come in variations and they have flavors to them. I have a ton of kink. I can get very, very specific about things that I like, that I enjoy.
I think kink is a broad term that covers anything that gives you pleasure outside of the norm, I guess, but kissing can be a kink too. The kissing is considered vanilla. Kissing. A good little tongue. And then rolling into fetish. What is your definition of fetish?
So I make a distinction between kink and fetish, and I've gotten into some verbal sparring over this. For me, fetish is something that you require in order to get sexually excited. Kink is something you may like, but fetish is a requirement. People who have a fetish about a specific body part per se, if they cannot get excited without seeing that body part, if the main focus is that body part, that is a fetish. That is something that you need in order to have sexual enjoyment and or satisfaction.
Yes. So what would you consider your fetish? A fetish of yours?
I'm not sure yet. Okay. I know I have a ton of kinks. Okay, I have a ton of kinks. No, I'm not telling y'all. I don't trust any of you. Okay, I don't trust any of you. All right, G and I will talk about this offline as to what my fetishes are. But I'm not sure that I have a specific kink. I haven't gotten that far in my exploration to know that this set of conditions must be met in order for me to enjoy myself. I don't think I've gotten there yet.
Mm-hmm. I found pain is my fetish. It could be sensual, but yeah, I require a degree of it. It's in order to release, in order to reach the pinnacle of pleasure. That's fun. Rolling straight into play. Define play.
Something you wouldn't do in a coffee shop in front of everybody. Anything that you feel some sort of decorum. And I know, because I also have this fetish. Exhibitionism is a thing, but also it is something that I plan and I'm very careful about.
The word play is definitely muddled in
Mhm.
the BDSM and kink community. I find that swingers, or those who are in the swinging community, use play to substitute for sex.
And this is just from podcasts, okay? This is just from podcast listening. The preferred terminology that I hear a lot is scene. We had a scene with other people. We had a scene when we went on this cruise. It became a scene at the hot tub. So I hear that a lot.
Okay,
Is that a substitute for play?
So scene is, let's say, a box. It's an event, watching a movie, and it goes into a scene. So a scene is like a curated experience within certain confinements and certain boundaries. So that's what people say when they're scening. Play is what you engage in that scene. I hear this term used a lot in the swinging community to substitute for, hey, you want to in the BDSM community, play encompasses all different types of stuff. There's needle play, there's impact play, spanking falls under that category too. There's rope play, because I'm a woman and I am in the dating scene. I meet a lot of gentlemen who say, hey, do you want to play? And what they're really meaning is, hey, would you like to have casual, meaningless sex? But to me, since I'm a BDSM community member, my question is, what kind of play?
So play is a category selection for you. The person that does not know any better will say play and mean sex.
Yep.
Okay.
So what is casual? Again, two women navigating dating streets. We've come across quite a few people who want casual. Let's define what casual means to you and me.
There's an app for that. Okay, there's an app for casual. Stay there. And I'm not there. Casual, no strings attached means you meet, you hook up, you have sex, and then you leave and you never talk to that person again. You do not form a bond or relationship. You have an itch that needs to be scratched. Hopefully, a person that's willing to scratch is going to relieve that itch, and then you go your separate way. There's nothing casual about me. I'm always your slightly overdressed friend. And I mean that in all ways. To me, casual and NSA are kind of the same type of thing, disposable. You're not doing a thing repeatedly. You're not forming a relationship.
It's less than the bare minimum of investment. I have a big issue with that term and that label. It is an indicator of the level of commitment and the level of investment that the other person intends to bring. Coming from somebody who has had a few years navigating that, there's nothing casual about seeing someone naked. There's nothing casual about taking your clothes off and seeing each other in our most vulnerable states, putting your private parts on each other and in each other. There's nothing casual about that. Everyone's allowed to want what they want, but oftentimes our experiences as women navigating the dating streets, quite a decent amount of men and people.
Oh, don't forget the couples.
And the
don't
couples
forget the swingers.
looking for sex under the casual label.
Yeah, no, for me, I would book a vacation. I would go overseas. It didn't feel good to me. I did it because I thought that if I didn't, I would lose it, like use it or lose it type of thing. It was kind of maintenance for me. It was not something that I enjoyed. And I realized later in my life, in my 40s, I need to be affirmative about the things that I do. I can't just be neutral, especially when it comes to something that means something to me. I don't know if this is a fetish or if it's just a state of mind. In order to get excited, in order to want to, I really do need to get to know you. I do. This is a habit with me. I take my time on almost everything. I don't buy something because an internet ad popped up. I do my research. Then I watch 7 or 8 YouTube videos. And then I interview the thing when I see it in person. I quite literally like, do you fit right? Are you itchy? I'm very particular in that way. I treat a pair of shoes with that much attention to detail. I'm not having sex with my shoes. That's, another episode, but no, I'm not having sex with my shoes. I'm wearing my shoes. They are a utility for me. What makes you think that there is anything that's going to rev this engine about just meeting you and getting naked? It's not going to happen. And people, they try you, jam a whole relationship in between your first date and the time they text you. Y'all, could you stop? There's nothing casual about me, including the sex.
Speaking from the experience of somebody who has navigated the casual sex streets, oftentimes people who settle for that label and settle for those kinds of interactions are the ones who are afraid of intimacy. What I also do find as I continue to engage in these activities, that at some point you get tired of it. Because as women, we need that emotional intimacy to be able to fully let go, to be able to fully relax. And the more I trust you, the more I feel safe with you, the more I open up. And this is just me. The more we trust you, the more you invest in me, the more I feel safe, the freakier I get.
You don't understand. It's a party. It's a party in between these ears.
The freakier we
is.
get. We want that. We want that big O. We want the earth-shattering, soul-searing releases and stuff like that. But that's just not something that I can reach under the casual label.
It's something that I've never reached under the casual, just from experience. It's something that has never, ever happened to me. Not even a little O. Not even a little O. It's been the night of some people's lives, and I've gotten feedback on that. Did you? No, I did not.
And the same thing also happens, like even with the brothers out there who are burying their sorrows in casual sex for whatever reason it is, at some point they get tired too. I meet my fair share of men in the dating scene who admit to me that they want to be like mine. They want deep emotional connection, but it's just not quite adding up with the casual label. There's a very big cognitive dissonance where people are they want intimacy. They want that stuff. They want their soul fed, right? They want the spiritual aspect of a relationship, but we're just very scared of intimacy, and that's okay.
I think it's almost terrifying, and also it's hard to break routine. If no strings attached sex has been your state for any amount of time, it is hard to change that dynamic. See, I would do it so infrequently, it never became a habit. The habit was once a year and skipping a couple of years on which I did not go on vacation. It didn't happen. It didn't become a habit as in daily or monthly or biweekly or whatever frequency people are out here just hooking up. It never became a habit for me in that sense. It became a routine, but it didn't become a habit. And I think once people are in the habit, breaking that dynamic is really, really difficult, because I've run into a couple of our brothers who admitted they don't know how not to. They don't know how to court. They don't know how to take their time. They don't have the threshold for developing relationship. And I realized this rolls into my skill set, asking the right questions, doing my vetting process. Is there a way to get out of that mindset and treat people, I don't know, like people, I guess, instead of as objects?
I am very careful not to judge the casual peoples too harshly, because I've been there. I've been there. We're just all broken people looking for love in all the wrong places. They have their own journey and they have their own growth to go through. Some people like me get to a point where they have a wake-up call and a reality check, and it was like, oh shit. And then we start like really digging in and doing the work of the self-reflection and self-awareness of why we do the things that we do. Where does this stem from? Now, friends with benefits.
And this is a big sticking point with me. This is the big thing. And this is the thing that I get queried about. So there are two things about my profile that people will respond to. A lot of them respond to my friends with benefits query. I say, if you can explain to me how I benefit in a friends with benefits situation, let me know. And I will be willing to try it. Okay. But no one, and I mean zero. We are how many months in now? Almost 6 months into this exploration of mine. No one has ever given me an immaterial or material benefit to friends with benefits. And so I've said, let's redefine terms. You don't want a friend. You want a buddy. That's what you want. That's what you want. You want someone under the casual banner, but you also want to abuse them emotionally by showing up or disappearing whenever you feel like it and saying, we're just friends. That's what you want. Say what you mean. Words mean things. We're not friends. You know how I know we're not friends? I care for my friends. I call my friends. I make plans with my friends. I celebrate my friends. I cry with my friends. Exactly. We talk about the mysteries of the universe, who we are, how we fit in it. We have action plans depending on what kind of friend you are. If we're community organizing, if we're planning the next meeting, if we are on this podcast. Okay, if we are friends, I am 10 toes deep in those relationships.
And my friends, our friends, are invested in you in whatever form that is. Emotional investment is a thing. My friends care for my emotional and physical and financial well-being. I have friends who pay me for my services. I have friends who are my clients, and they are more than happy to support me in my my business. My friends are some of like my number one cheerleaders in business and in life. I call my friends when I'm having a hard time. I call my friends if I need to work something out. I call my friends if I need to vent, This friends with benefits. Again, I have friends who support me and pay my bills. So let's talk benefits.
You know what I don't do with my friends? Play or have sex with them. I don't do that. And that's why my friendships have lasted as long as they do. I realize that I am very much a relationship anarchist. Relationships mean something to me. They are very, very important to me. And it doesn't matter if it's a familiar. I have family that I will do for and care for, but like my friends mean just as much to me. My friends mean just as much to me. And if I ever figure out this romance thing, that does not supersede, and I guess you can call me disloyal, but it does not supersede those other relationships. Johnny come lately or Betty come lately, we go both ways, Omni, but we have to spend time on you. We have to spend time on you. We have to build up those levels of trust. We have to build up our communication style and frequency and stick to it, have our ups and downs. I fight with my friends. That's another thing I do with my friends.
We disagree.
We argue, we disagree. We'll get into it because you were calling people friends and I was like, no, that's not a friend. That should have been a client, to be perfectly honest. Yeah.
We'll talk about that another time.
That was not a friend. There was nothing casual about that either. If I got to get dressed up, it's not casual. And I dress up for everything, including the gym. Like I was like, oh, I casually go to the... No, I don't. I have to sign up for class. If I'm going to take a class at the gym, what do I have to do? I have to plan for that. I have to either call in or use the app and register for a class. Them spin cycles, they fill up real quick. So that takes planning. There's nothing casual about that. I realized there's nothing casual about me. I scanned my day, I scanned my rhythms, I scanned my relationships, and I'm not casual. Okay, I dress up to go to the coffee shop. I dress up to go to the gym. I have to make appointments to go to the gym. I make appointments to go almost everywhere. No, I have a schedule. Mm-hmm. We're going to stick to it.
These were just things popping up in my brain all day today when we talked about defining terms. Sex positivity and body positivity. For some reason, body positivity is being used as some way in some people, by some people, to shame those who are showing a larger plus size body type. For me, body positivity is just the recognition that your spirit and your soul is beautiful and that the body is just a shell that houses that. So many people are struggling with shame, struggling with all these like self-image issues, negativity towards sense of self. This is also just a recent thing because I have lost 30 pounds. It's just the recognition that you deserve love, no matter what you look like.
Yeah, no, it took me a very long time to accept myself as I am. And from day none with me, it has been a struggle to maintain my autonomy, maintain my identity, and not get lost in conforming to a ideal or a norm or anything else like that. So body positivity is on that list of things for a very long time. And this was from institution. This goes back to serving. My body was not acceptable when when I served. It was entirely too heavy. And even though it performed better than most, did the thing that it was supposed to do. You get all of these tests and you get scores, and I got high scores and I was so happy with myself, only to finish whatever task it was and get weighed and being told this is not good. And so I lived with that for a very, very long time and had a lot of shame surrounding this shell, right? Ain't nobody got time. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put my blood pressure up against anybody else's blood pressure any day of the week. I love this body and what it does, but it took me a lot to get there.
Share a very similar narrative as far as like shame and body dysmorphia by being labeled fat and labeled obese, because even to this day, when I go get weighed and stuff like that, people still list me down as obese. If you look at me in person, you'd never be able to tell. That right there encompasses body positivity. I love my body and what it does. Thank you, body, for getting me from point A to point B. Thank you, body, for seeing me through years of abuse. Thank you, body, for withstanding years of abuse. Thank you, body, for getting me here today. Everybody deserves to be loved. And then sex positivity.
This term comes up in listening over and over again. I'm not going to yuck your yum. I might internally. Things gross me out. Certain things gross me out. They do. Okay, I'm not putting that out. I'm not broadcasting that out in conversation. No. Like you do you as long as no one gets hurt. But if you tell me about it and I make a face, it can't be helped.
I think sex positivity has become a term to sort of coin the sexual liberation that women are going through. Like, women have been hospitalized, we have been institutionalized, we have been burned at the stake for having orgasms. Sex positivity started becoming a thing to sort of like herald this social change in what's happening in like the women's in society today. It's the shedding of shame that we have had for fucking millennia. It's the freedom to enjoy sexual pleasure. Yeah, the freedom to enjoy sexual pleasure as long as it's legal and as long as it's consensual, as long as nobody gets hurt non-consensually. It's also with the recognition that sexual release is therapeutic in so many different ways. It's a stress reliever. By all means, enjoy the big O's. They're wonderful. Coming from the background that I come from, born and raised in a very strong, prolific Mormon family, and we'll get into all of this in another episode, but like extensive background and history with being sexually harassed, abused, molested, and taken advantage of. So I had a lot of, as far as like being a woman and being a beautiful woman. So I lost my virginity at 17, 18, 19. And I don't think I had my first orgasm until I was like 19. And I was like been sexually active since 17. And I didn't have my first orgasm until 19. Ask me how many times I faked orgasms.
Oh, I'm the queen of faking it. I'm the queen of faking it. I'm trying to remember. I was in my mid-20s and had been married for a long time, and I stumbled across one. That's how it happened. And I was like, okay.
Stumbled across one, and I was like, whoa.
I know. I was like,
whoa.
okay. This
How
is
did
what
this
everybody's
happen?
been talking about. I don't know. I didn't know. I had been having sex for a very, very long time. Lost my virginity. I don't really like that because did somebody else find it? I don't know. It's just a turn of phrase that has always kind of bothered me. I lost it. Is it out in the streets? Is it afraid? Is it gone? I was 19, late bloomer in all ways. Late bloomer in all ways. Late blooming for someone who I graduated middle school with most of my class being pregnant.
Oh, shit.
Babies. Yes. Everybody had babies. And I hadn't kissed a boy. 19 for me, culturally speaking, for my community was a lot late. It was a positive experience, but I didn't have an O then. And I watched When Harry Met Sally and all of that stuff. And I was like, oh, I've been doing that the whole time. I can mimic just about anything. And so I was going through the motions and faking it every single last time. And every man that I've ever rolled across, no one's ever faked it with me. I was like, you've been with me. Of course I have. Of course I have.
My God. Yeah.
Yeah.
The men who have dated me at 17, 18, 19, and probably into my 20s. Yeah. And this was also, we had been talking about those with heightened empathy. I didn't realize at the time I was faking an orgasm. I was just mirroring. Your brain does some crazy shit. Mirroring this person, and psychologically, it convinced myself that it was an O until I had my first one. And I was just like, oh,
I was chasing the dragon for years after my divorce. I got there once in all of this years of being married. And I wanted to get back. I couldn't get back there until 6 months ago. And I'm a great big age of 48 years old. Consistent, regular repetition, being able to put a voice to my own needs, which I just was not in the practice of doing for most of my life. Yeah, I'm better tempered now and not braver per se, but even though some women do have to be brave about that, another topic for another day. There is a pressure to have one, and it doesn't happen all the time, even if you repeat the same motion. Laboratory settings, if you repeat the experiment, you're supposed to get the same results. That's not how orgasms work. That's not how people work. And so I have shed that pressure recently because I'm just not going to lie about it anymore. I'm tired. Up until this recent expiration. So 6 months ago, I was 47 and a half. Up until 47 and a half, I could count on one hand the number of O's I had. That's where we are. Now I can use both hands 2 times over. I figured out what the secret sauce is.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So that's like sex positivity as we understand it. For me, it's like sex and the activity, and the O is very much like a celebration of life. What a great way to really feel alive. What a great way to feel and celebrate life.
You can stop at at feel. For me, I was not feeling the thing. And I felt a ton of social pressure, relational pressure, romantic pressure, whatever you want to call it. Just pressure in general to feel a thing that I was not feeling. not honoring the part of me that has needs, just in general. I did myself a disservice. I did the partners that came after me a disservice by faking it. I feel a little bit of guilt about all of that. Thank you to the brave women who can say after a play session or after sex, no, I did not. You've got some more work to do to make me happy if that's what you want to do. I've learned how to do that. It is a certain type of bravery, but it took me this long to get there.
Can't remember how old I was, but I think I was like 19 or 20. And this is one of those pivotal moments that kind of like altered behavior for the rest of their life. I had the biggest crush on a guy. He was a fellow Marine, active duty. He was a recon Marine. I had the biggest crush on him. I didn't know it at the time. I was still young and naive, but he was like pretty much a player. He started picking me up and would like give me a ride back to the barracks from the chow hall and stuff like that. I can't exactly remember what he was asking me. I kind of get a feeling he asked to hook up or asked to and shit like that. And I remember being hesitant and not immediately responding with enthusiasm. And he called me a prude and was like, what? I'm not a prude. I was like, yeah, you're a prude. You don't like, yeah, you're a prude. You don't want to have sex with me. You're a prude. And it's
like, no,
so,
I just don't want to have sex with you. Can you not?
It's so crazy thinking about like it just recently resurfaced. I can't believe I'm young. I don't know myself. And for you to like call me a prude just because I won't jump in the sack with you immediately, just because you gave me a ride in your car. Anyways, ended up having sex with him not too long after that, and it wasn't great. So I definitely think I internalized that. That's all. I'm gonna leave it at that. Relationship anarchy, define that.
Okay, so relationship anarchy is not placing one relationship over another. There are relationship capitalists, there are relationship libertarianisms. Politically speaking, it falls along the line of political movements, anarchy being one of them, but not saying that this is the natural order of things. You put your romantic relationships on top of your familiar relationships, which goes on top of your friendships. You don't rank those relationships. Now you have different levels of depthness and attachment to people. That is all natural, but any category of thing doesn't supersede another one. So some people will say marriage is the most sacred thing in the whole wide world. No, no, to me, it's not. It's not a sacred thing that goes above everything else. I was married once. I didn't like it, got out of it. I've been single 3 times as long as I was married almost. So I was married for 7 years, but 21 years of my life, 22, maybe even 23 years of my life, I have been single. I don't put a value of romantic relationships above my platonic or familial relationships.
What would that be called though? Those who value their romantic relationships and or marriages above their platonic.
It's a hierarchical system. Listen, I'm learning the terms now.
For me, the inconsistency that I'm going to point out in this way is for like people like me who do place more priority in my romantic relationships. Marriage is the most sacred thing, except people no longer treat it as such. If that was the case, people would not be abusing their wives and or vice versa. People would not be cheating on each other.
According to this, it is a philosophical approach to partnership over a religious one or a societal one. Culturally speaking, there is a ladder that people put these things on. And I'm not saying all cultures are the same. Someone might say marriage is the most sacred in Judeo-Christian, other than your relationship with God. God comes first, then comes your marriage, and then comes everybody else, right? So there's a hierarchy of relationships, and that's based on religion. There's a philosophical bend that you can take on relationships in which you tie them to political beliefs. So relationship anarchy rolls underneath that banner. So you have relationship anarchists, you have relationship capitalists, and you have relationship libertarians. From what I've read, that's the one that resonates the most with me. But like all political leanings, they can change. But I realize with me, because my mom used to say this all the time, but blood. And it's never meant anything to me. It never, it does mean something to me, but those relationships formed over time. Just because I'm related to someone doesn't mean I have to care. I don't care about my third cousin who I've never met. I don't know you. I don't know you. We have a group chat, a family group chat. They're like, I met you when you were a baby. It's like, okay, that's nice. Like, I don't know you. Can you borrow money from me if you are related to me by blood? No.
Oh, been there, done that.
No.
Done my fair share
I've
of
been
that.
hit up by cousins.
Yeah, I feel like people who throw that blood is thicker than water phrase around is always the ones who are trying to convince you to sacrifice your boundaries for the sake of family. And family, at least toxic ones, are almost always the first ones to financially abuse you, emotionally abuse you, and or physically abuse you. Moving into relationships, we are navigating the kink streets. For me, I'm in the BDSM world, and so we are in the alternative lifestyle. Traditional lifestyle, traditional relationships are mom, dad, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiancés, brother, sister, your spousal, your family relationships, cousins. Those are all like traditional relationships. In the alternative world, we have DNS, the doms and the subs, play partners, the masochists and their sadists. So these are like alternative lifestyles. I have encountered a few too many people who don't value these alternative relationships on an equal plane as the traditional relationships. I don't know what it is, but like your brain is programmed to value the traditional relationships.
Because we are inundated. Every story that we hear are fairy tales, heteronormative. I want to make this clear, and I'm going to actually make it very, very clear. My profile is going to change. I'm here for the she's, the theys, and the gays. I think I might be quitting the men's for a while. They need to go on hiatus. They're in timeout. Okay, like that's where I'm at. But because we are taught language in which the stories all have that nuclear thing, and that's from our culture. Our movies do this storytelling. School books that we have do this. The storytelling comes from our parents and our grandparents. It's something that is very rigid and not necessarily inclusive of the alt. So everything that we have tells us this is how we tell our story. This is who we are. Anything that deviates from that is not normal and it's not good because it's not. And we're surrounded by it. Even doing this podcast, I realize that there's a lot of heteronormative speech in our patterns because that's what we grew up with.
Mm-hmm. And what I most look forward throughout this whole thing is like the deprogramming process. And this isn't to say that we are by no means experts. I've been in this, 3 years?
We're two girls
I'm
talking.
not an expert. We're just talking. We're just like working things out. We are quite literally feeling our way through this. And so alternative relationships, this is what it is. Alternative lifestyle. It's not a fantasy. These are real people. These are real relationships. It's still real and emotional, physical, financial, spiritual investment in each other. What I don't enjoy is seeing the people coming into the scene and coming into the world and treating these things as just fun because that's porn. That's what the porn world has done to you guys. It has fantasized these ideals, but it's like, no, it's investment. In some ways, these alternative relationships are so much more deeper and intimate than most people get to experience in their traditional relationships. Now, our last one for the evening is sex work. Define sex work.
Okay, so I think sex work is going to be defined by an individual. But for me, I realize that I have certain skills, even though that I'm very, very good at and very competent and know what I'm doing when I do it and control, I don't enjoy it. And it rolls into the play part of BDSM. So I am tangentially in that world. I have not jumped in, but I've had some situations in which it was discussed, in which we were negotiating, in which we were actively playing with power dynamics. So I would say that even though I am not officially in scene, I have dabbled, right? There are things that I am very good at as far as being a sadist is concerned. The degradation game.
Got that shit in spades.
Like, when asked, and I have been asked, I get responses from this. I get very positive feedback on my performance, but that's exactly what it is. It's a performance. It is not something that brings me gratification. No. Well, some people say I'm a natural, but it's not something that I don't want to do, but it does provide a service. So if I'm providing a service, if I am doing something that I wouldn't necessarily do for pleasure relationship wise, I can do all of these things in relationship and enjoy it because I have compersion. I enjoy other people getting off. I really, really, really do. But would I do it on a Tuesday if I'm just chilling? Like, no, it takes a bit of theater. It takes some practice. It it takes knowing that other person and what they are, being very specific about what they want to hear and what I should do, like
Mhm.
while I'm doing that. That's a service. If I feel like I'm forming a service outside of a negotiated relationship stance, to me, that's work. I have to prepare for that. I have to get in the right headspace for that. I have to dress up more than I actually regularly do for that. I have to interview you for that. I have to do my own evaluation of your temperament and how far I can go, like with that, without actually destroying someone's psyche. All of those things signal that I am working, not playing. That is not something that I do for my pleasure, or not even necessarily like something that I would want a partner to request of me more than, I don't know, once a quarter. I don't want that to be a regular dynamic in my relationship. So things that fall outside of that, that I actually have a skill, people would pay good money for. People do pay good money for. I think I should get paid for it. To me, that's what sex work is.
Sex work is quite literally the oldest profession in the freaking history of professions. There's so much value in that, in what sex work does for people. You're a service provider. You are servicing people. You're servicing their needs. You're servicing their fantasies. You're servicing their release. You're orchestrating stuff. And so, like, being in the service industry myself, there is a stigma attached to it, especially in a lot of the encounters that I encountered. Sex workers don't care less about your well-being, and it's just like, that is the complete opposite, or at least from my experience. I'm sure there are some people out there who are dabbling and not caring about people's well-being, but for those of us who do this, I find that I'm regularly thrust in this role, whether I like it or not. Whether I like it or not. And again, the demographic that I experience the most are men. Women don't approach me with these things because men want to experience, men want to facilitate their fantasies. They want their fantasies come true, to be made into fruition, but they don't encounter women that they trust to do it in a way that doesn't damage them psychologically, right? They don't often meet women that they respect. Respect is a huge thing for a lot of people as well, too. It's not just women, men do it too. But it's like sex work checks the emotional attachment out of the equation. So if you want casual sex, but you're over here trying to like convince women to settle for your casual sex, go to a sex worker. Go to a sex worker.
And that's actually, I'm going to quote myself because, like, quite literally, if men, and I'm going to say men because I've run into some women on the internet, like, at least the scam is like, just, follow my Instagram. At least the scam is very, very simple. It's still hurtful and hateful to start a thing because I get excited when I see a lady is matched with me. I get very excited only to find out it's a man in disguise.
We'll talk about that.
Right? Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Or a man that I've met in disguise will approach me as a woman. I get very excited and I'm like, wait a minute, I recognize this pattern. I know who's clicking at the end of this keyboard. This is someone I've met. And then I'll call them out and, surprise, this isn't the first time that it's happened. I sent you the latest one. We're working on two and a half, like almost 3 times. I've met someone, it hasn't worked out. They've approached me as a woman. And I'm like, really? Like, I'm not going to figure it out relatively quickly too. Anywho.
Yeah. And sex, and just like fully understand that sex work encompasses a wide variety. It's, again, a broad term. It does encompass a wide variety.
Listen,
of
phone sex is
things.
a thing, and it's still a thing.
Sexting.
Sexting. You can do this on Zoom. You can do this in person. You can do a lot of sex work without ever getting naked or touching another person.
Yep.
That is
very,
a new revolution
it's a valuable service. It is a valuable service because a lot of times too, a lot of men don't feel safe and don't feel comfortable indulging in these fantasies with their traditional partner, because let's face it, in that world, you risk losing respect in the eyes of your partner, right? In so many ways, it's a safe place to put these things into, because like, we're not attached to you. There's no emotional attachment to that. We're not here to judge you. We're quite literally here to provide you a service and scratch your little itch, so that you're not out here wasting other people's time and harming relationships, and, well, for the most part, and wasting other people's times and creating freaking trust issues for other people.
No. Oh, goodness. So we're going to end on that.
I hope you as the audience enjoyed our episode tonight. And if you have any thoughts, any input, if you disagree with some of the things we said, please feel free to share, email your thoughts in, comment down below, leave a comment, and we'll read them. So thank you everyone for being here tonight. Good night.